Hey everyone, not sure if this video is related to everyone or not, but today's discussion is going to be in regards to heart disease, heart attacks, and fats. So that said, I won't go too much in details in regards to my previous history. You can find a lot of that information through my YouTube channel. But I will go ahead and discuss certain key points in regards to carnivore and ketogenic diet. Now, to give you a full breakdown here, yes, I've been on a ketogenic diet for about 3 years, but as well, carnivore diet roughly about 2.5 years. Roughly about 1+ years eating cooked carnivore, and roughly about a year, give or take, just pure raw. In addition, as most of you are aware, I do quite a bit of blood work. So far up to date, I've exceeded more than about 300 blood tests just to make sure these specific diets that I'm actually following are they triggering any type of inflammation or reaction throughout my body, so therefore I can share my experiences with you. Now, in regards to the ketogenic diet, yes, as soon as you are on a keto diet, the first thing you're gonna notice is, yes, your LDL tend to spike quite high. But keep in mind, the LDL, total cholesterol, that's not really a corporate to heart disease. Yes, a lot of the influencers, they tend to blame sugar to that, which is absolutely correct to a point. And one of the things that I tend to hear quite often is a lot of the influencers and or doctors who studied nutrition, they claim that yes, it does go up, but usually these levels will actually balance within about 3 years being, let's say, on a ketogenic diet. And we've all heard that many times. So when I did the ketogenic diet, yes, I did it for about 3 years and did roughly about a 70% intake of fats. And of course, fats are actually either coming in from animal product, but mostly plants. And when I did my first blood work, my LDL, low density lipids, went up to 11 millimolar, which is roughly about 425 milligram per deciliter, which is average number for LDL, and stayed at that rate for about 3 years. And after 3 years, I went back to these specific influencers and doctors, and you guys claim that everything balanced, but still today it hasn't really balanced. What's going on? And they claimed it's possibly due to your gallbladder not emulsifying the fats you're consuming properly. Well, it could be true, yes, but if your bile has not been released properly from the gallbladder, the first thing you're gonna notice is that your poop is either oily and or floating. But if none of that stuff is showing, that means your gallbladder is actually working fine. So what the gallbladder does, it emulsifies the fats, breaks them down to small droplets. Then the small droplets will actually pass through your intestine, and it becomes a lot easier for your lipase to break them down into glycerol. So anyways, being on a carnivore, I've had mostly was meat, fats, and fish. And when I did my first test after being on a carnivore for about 30 to 40 days, my LDL went as high as 24 millimolar, which is 928 milligram per deciliter, which is absolutely quite high. And I think that's the highest we've ever come across in the carnivore community. Fine, that said, my homocysteine was balanced, my HSCRP was below 1, but my HbA1c was as high as 6%, which is almost like a pre-diabetic. And of course, my oxidized LDL, that's the most important part. If you actually break it down, it's called LP little a. And Lp(a) stands for lipoprotein small a, and that actually was as high as 145 milligram per deciliter, where it's supposed to be actually below 30. And of course, when you actually break down the Lp(a), you're gonna find ApoB, which is oxidized lipids, and that was extremely high. So what I've done is I dropped the fats, did another test, went straight 6 months just eating wild fish daily, eating red meat once a week, and did another test. Suddenly my HbA1c drops down to 5%, HSCRP below 1, which is perfect, homocysteine is stable, but your Lp(a), which is your oxidized cholesterol, that was the most important thing to me, it went down to 45 milligram per deciliter. Now Lp(a) is a major factor and it plays a huge role in heart disease and heart attacks. The higher the number is, the more you're actually prone of having a heart attack or a stroke. And if you actually want to break it down a little bit more in specific, you can always get a test called LPPLA2. Remember when I mentioned earlier or in previous videos that a lot of people that tend to actually have heart attacks, they all had a low cholesterol? Fine, perfect. Low cholesterol is not the culprit, but one of the downfall is that a lot of the doctors or cardiologists never really check is your Lp(a), because even thought your cholesterol levels or your LDL are low, but if your Lp(a) is high, guess what? You are still at risk for having a heart attack and you are still at risk for having a stroke. So after everything was stable and back to normal, I wanted to do another test, but this time did my initial test being on 4 months, being strictly raw carnivore. Now, why did I went raw? Because in my mind, over the research that I've done, eating raw would actually the food itself will actually have its own enzymes. So therefore, when you eat it, you're not putting too much stress on your pancreas to release pancreatic enzymes. Since the food has its own enzymes, it will actually emulsify itself within, which is less stress on the pancreas. Instead of actually using our pancreatic enzymes to digest food, now we actually allow our pancreatic enzymes to be utilized to reduce inflammation and break down excess protein. So within that 4 months being fully raw, I actually measured everything. I went between 0.8 grams of protein per 1 pound of body weight. I'd go as high as 1 gram based on the hunger and based on the activity level. And for fat to protein ratio, kept it between 0.5 grams to roughly about 2 grams based on my athletic performance. Now, after 4 months, I was very, very excited because I felt great. Actually, I was sleeping better, performance is better, cognition is better, my gut feels a lot slimmer as well, but overall performance was just amazing. I go down to my doctor's office, pick up the blood work, I look at it, and I was fucking shocked. I was really, really shocked because I felt great from the outside, but I guess the inside is just being torn apart. And I'll explain what it was that I was actually torn apart. I look at it, again, the most important factors, HbA1c goes up 6%. HSCRP, another inflammatory response, goes up 1.5. I'm like, what's going on? Homocysteine was actually balanced, stable. Triglyceride to HDL ratio, supposed to be under 1 for optimal health. Mine was above 2. And finally, I look at my Lp(a). It was up 172 milligram per deciliter. And that's was shocking because I went fully raw, fully clean, fully strict, fish and meat and fats, but everything just spiked again. And I was very, very disappointed. It's like I'm back to stage 1. What the hell do I do? I'm lost here. I've tried cooked, uncooked, raw, saturated, no saturated. Any type of fast I consume, everything tend to kind of messes things up. So here's my kind of conclusion to this. Is it that people with existing heart disease or had a heart attack, or maybe there's a specific amount of population percentage out there that they cannot utilize fats as possible, as good as others? Is it possible that we lost some kind of enzyme to actually emulsify or breaks down the fats? Like till today, nobody has an answer to that. And I don't have an answer to that, but from my studies and my research and my blood work, it shows that when I am off the high fat intake and I just eat strictly, let's say, fish and lean meat, everything is stable and everything drops and everything is regulated. Is it me, myself, or is it everyone that actually did experience or had a heart attack and or living with heart disease are in the same category as me? Now, what I hate seeing is so many influencers on YouTube, Instagram, and other social platforms claiming I did, carnivore for 30 days and this is how I feel, I'm optimized, etc. And I think that's a full of bullshit. And you see somewhere I did carnivore for 1 year and I feel amazing. Is it really, do you feel amazing? Did you even test your blood work? Did you actually share that information? Or are you just putting out videos, nonsense content just so you can get the majority of views and clicks so people get excited and they actually buy the products you're advertising and or your nutritional so-called perfect diet? Like seriously, these influencers have to stop because you actually are hurting a lot of people out there. Now going back, we all know that fats and carbs are used as energy, right? How much do we require daily? I believe it varies per person. Some might, yes, tolerate intake of 20 grams of carbohydrates. Some can go as high as 100. And I think it's the same thing with the fats. Some can tolerate 20, 10 or 100 plus. But I hate seeing still till today so many influencers, they post themselves on any type of social media platform, showing off their muscular bodies, and they have a huge font saying my LDL is 794 milligram per deciliter and I feel great. Now I guarantee you, and I bet you that specific individual, their Lp(a) and or Lp(PLA2) is massively high, and they are clueless about it. Because the moment the Lp(a) is high, that means there's already an issue happening in the arteries. So what that individual does, they go and they get a CT calcium score done and it comes back being 0. Perfect. Nothing wrong with that. But do you think that a disease can actually accumulate within 30 days? Within 6 months, a year? We all know that diseases don't just accumulate in such a short term. It does take years and years and years of abusive. So is it that these influencers who are on the high fat intake and high protein intake or whatever it is, there's actually causing some kind of malfunction in their system? Or maybe that it's that small percentage of population that maybe there's nothing wrong with them, right? But keep in mind, when they get this CT calcium score, it's not really that accurate. Yes, it's giving you a number or it's giving you a 0. But we all know that diseases can take 5, 8, 10 plus years to develop. So you being on a carnivore diet or a ketogenic diet right now, it's not showing, it's showing up as 0. But you've only been doing it for 30 days, a year and a half, 2 years max. Even thought if you had inflammation, you think it's gonna show up on a stupid CT calcium score? Hell not. It's gonna take at least possibly 6, 7, 8 years. So much inflammation that eventually it will start to show on a CT calcium score. No, don't you agree on that? But like I said, I could be wrong on this, but I believe that number there, the Lp(a), lipoprotein small a, it should be tested regularly by these individuals who are consuming such an amount of high fats. because if you don't, you are putting yourself at risk. If not today, 10 years down the road. And one of the major factor is that a lot of doctors, a lot of influencers are clueless about is if your Lp(a) is high and it's starting to cause some kind of damage to your endothelials, which is to your arteries, there's one specific item that people have no clue about or what it does. And it could be that you're damaging your glycocalyx. And probably a lot of you have not heard of that term. The glycocalyx is a microscopically thin gel-like layer that coats the entire luminal of the vascular endothelium. It is the key to endothelial health because it prevents oxidized cholesterol. When I say cholesterol, don't worry about the cholesterol word. Let's look at the Lp(a). The oxidized Lp(a) and other particles from adhering to it and or penetrating and causing damage in the endothelial wall. So when you have high Lp(a), now I could be wrong on this because there isn't any studies been done on that yet. Is it possibly it's destroying that thin gel-like layer, and in time it will cause a lesion, and then here comes Lp(a) to actually stick to it and patch it, and let's welcome heart disease and or heart attacks. So when that thin layer glycocalyx start to being destroyed, and suddenly you have a sticky Lp(a) coming to aid and patch it, that's it. Obviously, this is what you're destroying. But like I said, there's no real evidence. There's no real research on this. There's not even studies been done on it just yet. But from my understanding and doing so much research over the years and designating, so much of my time towards heart disease, this is one of the conclusions I came across. So is the carnivore diet, ketogenic diet, high fat intake is as healthy as we claim, or we're gonna end up regretting this 30 or 50 years down the road? Like I said, or it could be a small population percentage that cannot digest, emulsify, and absorb these specific fats. Or is it just people with the current existing heart disease, such as myself, where we lost a specific enzyme that we cannot consume and or tolerate certain amounts of fats? Till today, for me to actually keep everything minimized, balanced, and on a safe schedule, my consumption of fats has gone down from being 100, 200, 300 grams, from being on a ketogenic to carnivore high fats and stuff. It has gone down to almost less than 20 grams a day. And if I keep it at 20 grams a day, then my Lp(a) stays below 30. And of course, I had to take some additional supplements to actually maintain that level, which is niacin. Now that said, if we are really missing that enzyme, the research that I've done, now that enzyme gets destroyed from over the years of abusing and eating certain processed foods that sometimes we thought it could be healthy or not. And these specific processed food, they're actually packed with so much chemicals, fructose and many other chemical ingredients that are actually put such a major havoc on the pancreas. And therefore, the first enzyme that will actually destroy is your lipase. So the moment you become deficient in lipase, pretty much you're the type of person that you will not be able to digest fats as well as others. Therefore, you tend to create more oxidized lipids in your system. Now, going back, I wish I kind of knew that information 20 or 30 years ago, because the knowledge that I have today, I would actually prevent myself from having a heart attack or even living with heart disease, and I would have been able to help so many individuals out there as well too. But from my recent research and finding out there's roughly a small percentage that they cannot emulsify fats properly, from my research it showed up there's roughly about 33%. The other majority of the population, which is 67%, they can digest and absorb saturated fats, no problem at all. Or if I am part of that 67%, but over the years of abusing my body with certain chemicals and food, I destroyed the lipase. So therefore, for me to continue on this journey and have lots of fats in my diet, I'll have to consume quite a bit of lipase enzyme, and it has to be taken properly in a proper amount of milligrams, because an average 70 milligrams of a lipase, it will only emulsify roughly up to 20 grams of fats. But keep in mind, by the time that capsule goes through your gut, through the acidity level and hit your small intestine, you're barely left with less than 5 to 10%. So you will have to be consuming at least 5 to 7 dosages of that specific milligram. So therefore you increase the chances of actually breaking down the fats. But now imagine if you're having a steak and that steak has 40 grams, 50 grams, 60 grams of fat, you have to be careful, and you do have to consume quite a bit of lipase to actually break it down. Or the only other option you have is eating the food raw. So you will actually preserve enough lipase in that fat, whether it's raw milk or let's say a raw piece of steak, raw fish, just so you can be able to break down the fats properly. But if you are cooking it, even at a slight degree of a temperature, even if you actually sear the steak, you will actually destroy that enzyme very, very fast. And another thing is, due to the high corporate world of butchery and all that stuff, and the amount of chemicals they spray on the meat to prevent certain diseases or parasites or whatever it is, one of the downfall is it does reduce the amount of enzymes by 20% on any given time. So even if you thought you're getting a nice piece of steak and it does have about 100 grams of fat, automatically off the start you're losing about 20% of that with no lipase to actually help you break it down. So no matter what, you still have to consume lipase enzyme with your food to actually break it down. It's unfortunate we have to live that way, but it is what it is. That's the only way you can bypass this issue and continue lowering and stabling your Lp(a). Again, I don't have a whole lot of research done on this, because there isn't much scientific data out there to actually present you guys with. But be mindful of the food you eat, and checking the Lp(a) once in a while, just to make sure you are on a proper level, will actually save your life.